Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Pro.
Affirmative. Correct.
Pro movies. Hey, everybody.
Audible nod. Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Joe versus the Volcano. Whoever wins, we lose.
Whoever wins, we also win.
Yeah, this is true.
It's a title fight of the century.
Once upon a time, in the middle of a deep, dark factory, an average Joe
Banks
lived a very boring life.
Good morning, Dee Dee.
Hi, Joe. What's with the shoe?
Losing my soul.
Yeah.
Until one day, he found out his life was over.
I'm not sick except for this terminal disease.
That's right. You have some time left, Mr. Banks. Live it well.
It's the WrestleMania 3 of Volcano conflicts.
Sure. They should have what's Pierce Brosnan's name in Dante's Peak?
I don't know, Pierce Brosnan?
Okay. They should have called that fucking Pierce versus the Volcano.
Mr. Dante?
It should all be versus, I don't know.
Every Volcano movie should be versus the Volcano. Like, Volcano should be Tommy Lee Jones versus the Volcano.
Jones versus the Volcano, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, big thank you to Vincent, our Patreon producer.
Yeah.
Who, if you noticed recently, had us watch Crimson Tide. Turns out that he didn't. Vincent
he absolutely didn't. We made a mistake. So we just made that Crimson Tide episode for no one in particular. For us, really. That was for you and me, Dave.
Yeah.
Listen, Crimson Tide is a movie we would have watched together eventually anyway, so I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Vincent gave us a list of movies to choose from. Crimson Tide is not on that list.
I like that you somehow, like, dyslexia'd it in there. Some sort, like your brain inserted the title into that list.
We've had other people give us lists to choose from, and I think one of their lists came over into his list, is what happened. So it was never on the list. Joe versus Volcano is on the list, though. So that's good. I double checked.
Go ahead and triple check.
Okay, hold on. checking his list.
Joe versus Volcano.
Yeah, it's right there.
Listen, we've already watched it, so this episode is gonna happen anyway.
Yeah. This is I hadn't seen this since I was a kid.
Same. My dad took me to the theater to see this movie.
Right. Did you look up the director, Tom?
I did. I didn't need to. I recognized his name.
Okay, because he's only done one other film after this. Well, sorry, he's done 3 films, but after this film, he did one other film, which was 2008's Doubt.
Yep, he is the writer-director of Doubt. He also wrote Congo.
Yeah. What is this guy?
He's a playwright.
Why is he such a hero? Oh, okay. It's just so funny that he made 2 movies in the span of like 20 years. And it was Joe versus the Volcano, and then Doubt.
They have more in common than you might like. It's a real whiplash in terms of tone. But like when you watch this movie, you can kind of feel that it was written by somebody who's a playwright.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Doubt, I believe, was written for the stage initially.
So
you can kind of hear it. The dialogue is structured in a specific way, and sort of like the way characters, the way a scene plays out in a location will be structured a certain way. So it's like I could see a version of Joe versus Volcano as a stage production, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I could see that too, because You could argue there's actually like minimal locations in a way that would work. It wouldn't be quite the same, but it could. Yeah, you could do it. You could do it. It would be kind of fun.
This is, of course,
starring Thomas Hanks and Megan Ryan. Meg Ryan in this is like.
Is it Megan or Margaret, Dave?
What?
Is it Megan or Margaret? Isn't Meg typically short for Margaret?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to look that up.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, why would I?
Why on earth would you? We didn't double check Crimson Tide, so we're not looking up Meg Ryan's name.
Yeah. City of Angels, Meg Ryan. And she is the Mike Myers of this movie.
She is. She plays 3 different characters.
And she plays them very well. She's having a lot of fun.
She's having a great time in this movie.
She kind of steals the show for me.
I feel like this is one of the more notable things about this movie is her in it, because I don't think she really got another opportunity to do this. And by that I mean, one, like, I'll say the primary character she plays is like a typical Meg Ryan romantic comedy character, in as much as you can be a typical character in this film. This movie does not take place in reality. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
It's a very intentionally surreal movie. But the 2 other characters she plays are very much like characters. Like, she's really getting to Mike Myers it up. And I don't think she really ever got to do that ever again. Yeah, the sister, the way she speaks. She has one line. What is it?
She calls herself a flibbergibbet.
A flibbergibbet, yeah.
A flibbergibbet, that's it.
When they're initially driving, he says something. I wish I should have written it down, but the way she said it, she says something like, "Oh, really?" And it's like this really incredibly.
It's like she has
no funny voice.
Right. It's like she has no control over her voice at any given moment. Yeah, she's doing a great job.
Yeah, she's getting. And then the other character she plays is kind of like, I don't know. She's doing like a Harley Quinn voice. It's she's having fun.
She really is. And we're having fun watching her. This is a good movie.
I really liked this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't remember much about it from when I first saw it as a kid.
Right. I remembered the shot of the moon specifically, and I remembered him playing golf. I remembered the part where he's lost at sea, basically. Yeah. I didn't remember much else.
Yeah.
I didn't know how it was going to end. I forgot how it had begun. I knew the general idea with that it was about a man who is told he's going to die and decides to jump into a volcano. I didn't know why he was getting in that volcano. I suspected it was because Lloyd Bridges shows up like Willy Wonka, and
he sure does. He Willy Wonka's all over this goddamn movie.
Yeah. It's because he paid Robert Stack to tell him he's dying.
He had brain fog. Yeah. So the basic premise of the movie is Tom Hanks is a guy who works a dead-end job in a very Brazil.
I was about to say, he works in a Terry Gilliam film.
Yeah, this movie starts out, it's Brazil. Like, and that's kind of like... Go ahead.
Oh, what's interesting about this film is the visual tone of it changes constantly. So, like, when this first started, I was like, I don't remember the movie looking like this. And it doesn't for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. It's... he's like at a dead-end job in this Brazil-like place where the bureaucracy is just absurd, intentionally absurd.
Yeah.
He goes to the doctor, Robert Stack, finds out that he's got incurable brain fog that's going to kill him in 6 months.
Right. It should be noted that in the tone of this film, I accepted brain fog. Because it was like the tone it was already so weird.
Yeah, it's the movie.
Oh, it is absolutely.
The movie is so strange. Like we mentioned, it doesn't take place in reality. It's very surreal. It's basically a fable. I want to say I might not be using that quite correctly, but
it feels like one though.
Yeah. So it's very storybook logic and like and also so like people behave in a way that's like not realistic, but it makes sense in like a fairy tale.
Right.
So when we first hear brain fog, it's not ridiculous within the context of the film. It's only at the end of the movie when he tells it to Meg Ryan and she's like, fucking brain fog?
Yeah.
You didn't get a second opinion on brain fog?
It's so good.
Yeah. So yeah, he finds out he's got 6 months to live. So he quits his job.
And I can't stress enough his job. All those scenes, he looks like he's dying in that job.
Yeah,
they go so like when he first goes into work and he he's ruining his shoe, and he literally says, "I'm losing my soul" about the shoe.
Yep.
And at one point, he literally like waves at God like he's a sim, like he's just like so miserable.
Yep.
And it's so they made it as soul crushing as possible.
Yeah. He works in a bleak fluorescent basement. His hair is long and stringy. He's really pale. Like they really, and he just looks miserable.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
And his boss is Dan Hedaya, just Dan Hedayaing out. He is the most Dan Hedaya he's ever been.
Yeah.
And the first version of Meg Ryan works with him at the office.
Yes.
So he quits his job, goes, finally asks this version of Meg Ryan, who I forget what this version's name is.
It was like Mimi or something.
Dee
It was
Dee
Dee.
Okay, so Dee Dee, he takes Dee Dee out. They have a great time. They go back to his place. They're about to have sex, but he tells her, "Hey, I'm dying," and she's not okay with it, so she leaves.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, and I do respect that. Like they have him, like he has 3 potential romantic encounters with Meg Ryan, and each time before anything romantic's about to happen, he lets them know, "Hey, I'm dying." Because it's not something you spring on somebody after you have sex.
No.
Anyway, I just appreciated that.
No, what you do is you say it during sex.
Yeah, you whisper it into their ears.
You say, "I have a disease.
I'm dying.
Yeah.
Don't get attached to me because I'm going to be dead in 6 months. I'm now making this your problem." So the next morning, Lloyd Bridges Willy Wonka's his way into Tom Hanks's house. He's like, "Hey, I forget how he heard about his problem."
He says, "I heard about it from the doctor."
Right.
He has a duck cane. He's really magical.
Yeah.
And
he's like the music man almost.
Yeah, he says the doctor is also like my doctor. What we learn, again, spoilers, is that that doctor doesn't see anybody else but Lloyd Bridges. So you realize, like, oh, he made the doctor do this.
Yeah.
But so Lloyd Bridges
paid Robert Stack to tell Tom Hanks he was dying. That's what we find out.
Yeah.
Lloyd Bridges shows up. He's like, "Hey, I heard you're dying. Why not make your last moments on this earth an adventure?" There's this island. It's a fictional island, but it's also based in reality. I think we just did a Somewhere News about this, where he's talking about like he has like a big stake in superconductors, and there's this metal that they can only get from one island in the Pacific, which is a fictional island. But I think the superconductor thing is like a real thing, right? Don't China and America both get conductors from the same?
There's issues when it comes to like superconductor, the supplies and stuff. There's a supply shortage right now. That's why nobody could get a goddamn PS5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where the actual material comes from. I just know that it's really hard to make superconductors.
Yeah, and I felt like it's like, I don't know. I'm gonna say it wrong, so I'm not gonna attempt it. But my brain did go like, "Oh, that's like a problem that we're dealing with today."
Yeah, it is.
So anyway, so he's like, so they have this metal that I need to make my superconductors, but according to their beliefs, their Volcano is this god who needs to be appeased once every 100 years, and we're coming up on 100 years, and if they don't get appeased, the island is going to sink. So I need you to go down there and jump into the volcano. You make these people happy. You make me happy because I get the metal that I need, and you get to have a cool, fun adventure. Like I'm gonna give you. He like lays out 5 different gold credit cards that he has, and he basically gives Tom Hanks like carte blanche to go through New York, spend as much money as he wants on whatever he wants to prepare for his trip. He's gonna fly him out to Los Angeles. He's gonna put him on a boat. And he's going to sail him to this island. He's going to live like a king for the rest of his life. And all he has to do is jump into a volcano. So Tom Hanks is like, yeah, sure. As like I think a lot of us might have made the same choice.
He doesn't have to think about it much, and he's just like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, because it's like, you know, he's got 6 months to live. He doesn't have any friends or family really. He doesn't have much money. So it's like, yeah, sure, I'll do this. Why not? He gets out to Los Angeles. We meet the second version of Meg Ryan, who is one of Lloyd Bridges' daughters. I forget what this version's name is as well.
Yeah.
But she's very like a very stereotypical LA artist type.
Yes. It feels like Lloyd Bridges is like, also, maybe you might fuck one of my daughters, because he has both of his daughters escort him.
Yeah, I think that's probably more the fairy tale aspect of it.
Yeah.
Than like a deliberate move on. Because Tom Hanks, we haven't really explained it, but the reason Meg Ryan plays 3 different characters in this movie is, well, one, he makes mention like a couple of times when he first talks to Dee Dee, and then when he talks to final form Meg Ryan at the end, he's like, I feel like I've met, the first time I met you, I feel like I've met you before. So it's like this, the movie's like about being too afraid of life to live. So the fact that she's playing 3 different characters is like, sort of like he's too afraid to take the chance the first 2 times, and then he finally decides to take the chance with final form Meg Ryan, and it works out. Yeah,
she represents the woman of his dreams, essentially.
Yeah. Yes.
And the realization is that that's not a specific woman.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Yeah, it's more that she represents the chances he's not taking.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting
it. In the form of the woman of his dreams.
Yeah.
So he gets, she takes him out on the town, shows him some stuff. They go out to like what is very obviously like a lover's lane makeout site above the city. And she reads him a poem that's not a bad poem. No. It's a single line. And it really is not a bad poem. But she gets very upset when he doesn't quite respond to it the way that she anticipated, I guess. He's not rude about it. She just gets upset. So the night goes bad. She takes him to the hotel. The next morning, he gets up, gets driven around by Ozzie Davis, and they have a fun little buddy segment.
Oh no, you're thinking in reverse.
Oh, reverse.
He does that in New York.
Oh right, he does. That's right. He does that before he leaves. He gets
That's where he gets his luggage.
Yeah.
With the most intense luggage salesman known to man.
Yeah, he buys his luggage, which turns out to be a pivotal part of the film. He buys all these watertight steamer trunks that end up becoming a raft for him. But he buys them. It's like the luggage place is like a cathedral. Anyway, he has like a fun thing with Ozzie Davis, who's driving around town to different places. And then he gets to L.A., he gets driven around by Meg Ryan a little bit. And then the next morning he gets on the boat with final form Meg Ryan, who's like the closest to an actual person that Meg Ryan plays in this film.
For sure.
And she's just somebody who's like resents the fact that she is essentially controlled by her dad. Like she agreed to sail Tom Hanks to this island because her dad promised her the boat, and we learn that like she's kind of mean to Tom Hanks at first, and that's why like she says like I found out I have a price, and now I know what my price is. It's that I did something I didn't want to do for my dad because he said he'd give me a boat.
Right.
They have an adventure on the sea. The boat sinks with Amanda Plummer inside.
Plummer, who has barely any lines.
Yeah.
Amanda Plummer, what are you doing?
She's in the movie for like 2 scenes and then goes down with the ship.
At that point, I was like, well, that's got to be the most shocking cameo in this. I was wrong.
Yes.
And we'll get to that.
They're marooned on the ocean for a little bit. He lashes together his 4 expensive waterproof steamer trunks into a makeshift raft. Meg Ryan was knocked out during the sinking of the boat, so he's keeping her underneath an umbrella and giving her all the water because he thinks he's going to die. Right. So he gets like delirious from sunstroke and has like a communion with God where he like talks to the moon in the middle of the ocean, and it's like a major thematic point of the movie. But he basically says the line, which is a really good line. He's like, "Thank you, God, for my life. I forgot how big," as he's looking at the moon. Fucking incredible line.
Yeah, he forgot he was in Big.
Yeah, he forgot he was in Big, the motion picture Big. Man, I forgot. I almost won an Oscar for that movie.
Yeah.
So they finally wash up on the island. It's a little bit racist, but I did appreciate that they did the work to explain that this fictitious island was made by like a Jewish guy and like a soda salesman like 60 years ago.
Yeah, it's like one of those moments where you're watching and I'm like, yeah, this feels racist, but I'm not exactly sure how to articulate that.
Right. It's a similar gag to like in Blazing Saddles where Mel Brooks had all the Native Americans speaking Yiddish. Like it's
which is a very funny gag.
It's just it's a similar gag. So like the sort of shaman he meets is 100% Nathan Lane.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
A shocker. And I thought that was going to be the most shocking cameo.
The chief of the village is Abe Vigoda.
Yes, he sure is. And it was like, okay, all right, we're doing something absolutely unhinged
right,
here.
like, and they're all obsessed with, like, their culture is obsessed with orange soda. It's like I said, it's like, it could, I guess the best thing you can say about it is it could have been more racist. So at least they did the work to make it like a fictitious people at a fictitious island, and it's just silly.
Right. It's the seeing white people in tribal makeup. It's just like,
that's where you're like, eh.
But they work in a plot for why they're doing it.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I mean, they're aware. What it amounts to is that they're aware that it's like, this is inappropriate. Obviously it's the 90s, so they probably don't realize how inappropriate. But they realize they know what we're seeing is inappropriate.
Yeah, and the island sinks at the end, so I think they also didn't want to doom a bunch of like real people, so they made it a fictitious island, and you know.
Yeah, they all die. That tribe dies.
Yes, they sure do. Abe Vigoda has a very funny line too, where he's explaining to him how like the ceremony is going to go. He basically just says, "Okay, so we're going to have a meal. You're going to say some words, and you're going to climb to the volcano and jump in. Okay." And that's like exactly how he delivers it.
It's real good.
It's very funny. So they have their big dinner and their ceremony, and Tom Hanks is like, all right, fuck it, let's do it. He walks up to the volcano. Meg Ryan is begging with him not to go, and then decides to just jump in with him. Like, well, not begging. She tries to convince him not to jump in. And he's like, well, no, I have to do this. I've been afraid my whole life. I have the chance to be courageous now. I'm going to jump in.
Right.
So she's like, fine, I'm going to jump in with you. I'm going to be courageous. So they jump in together, and right as they jump in, a pocket of steam erupts and shoots them out of the volcano and into the ocean safely. And then the entire island sinks.
Yep.
His luggage reappears. Oh, right before they jump in the volcano, she's like, well, let's, in the spirit of being courageous, she's like, I love you. He's like, I love you too. They have Chief Abe Vigoda marry them, and then they get spat out in the ocean. So yeah. They have a moment where the luggage comes back together. Tom Hanks lashes it together. They sit on the luggage. Meg Ryan's like, hey, we didn't die. And he's like, yeah, I guess I should have. He explains his brain fog thing, and that's when she tells him it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That he should get a second opinion, because it's not a real thing.
Yeah, it's well done because she knows her father. So when he says the doctor's name, it makes perfect sense for her to be like, oh, I know that doctor. He only treats my father. So like, yeah, that they lied to you.
Yeah.
Also, brain fog. That's not a thing.
That's not
right?
a real thing. Yeah, my dad paid this doctor to tell you were dying so that you would jump into this volcano so that he could get the metal he needs to make his superconductors.
Right.
That is what happened to you.
Yeah.
And they share like a romantical moment. And that's it. That's the movie.
That's the movie. They die at sea.
They die at sea, presumably. No, I mean, I don't know. Who knows?
he has a moment where, they say, and they lived happily ever after on the text at the end. That's
true.
Part of why it's a fairy tale. It is bookended by like once upon a time stuff. But yeah, shit. What was I gonna say? There's a moment at the end where Tom Hanks is like, "Still, we're in trouble." And he kind of has to shake it off, and she has to tell him to shake it off. Of like, it's like, stop worrying,
stop being so afraid. Yeah, like that's ultimately.
I would say he's being practical, but I get
at this point he is. But yeah, like the movie is about being too afraid of life to live.
Yeah, it's. And that it's reflected visually, I would say, because the movie just gets brighter and brighter. And the first warmly lit scene is, I think, his date with the woman from work when he gets fired. Or, sorry, he quits. He quits spectacularly.
Like, the lighting, I feel like the lighting actually changes as he's quitting, but I could be wrong. But anyway,
maybe, actually, I noted a shot, so he quits because he realizes that, and at this point, he doesn't have any prospects. He has just been told, you're going to die in 6 months.
So he's like, it's the first time he's been free in his entire life. And it takes it takes the threat of death, the fact that this is all going to end, for him to truly let go of the stuff that doesn't matter as much.
it's because we all work for the long term because we have to.
Yeah, we have
to. People get trapped in these situations, but in their mind, there's like, what am I going to do? Live on the streets my whole life? And so like the realization of like, well, your life ends in 5 months. Frees him. And the moment that I think of that's, means a lot is he quits the job and then they show him walking out. No, I'm sorry. It's before he quits the job. He goes to the doctor, is told he's going to die, and they have him walk out of the doctor's office, and it's this shot of the door against a brick wall, a red brick wall, and he stands there, and an old woman walking her dog walks up, and he just like wordlessly crouches down and pets the dog, and then hugs the dog, and then hugs the old woman. Mm-hmm. And as that's happening, it's slowly zooming out to open up the world essentially to him. And it's kind of a very profound moment, or it's meant to be in the film of this person realizing that everything or that nothing matters in this moment and just enjoying a dog and then hugging a woman, a stranger woman on the street.
Yeah. Another human being. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very, it's a little, I don't know, American Beauty-ish.
A little bit.
In the way I would say a better version of that movie.
Much more responsible version for sure.
Yeah. He's not trying to fuck his daughter's friend in this movie at any point.
Boy, that's an embarrassing movie in 2022.
Yeah, it was an embarrassing movie then. We just didn't realize
it at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, like, to me, this takes that kind of idea and I don't know, tells it better. Tells it way better.
It's like a more pure, more joyful version of that idea. This is a familiar story, right? Like the idea that
it's the nothing matters. It's the nihilism.
Yeah, you need to start living because the world is truly so big, and we're sort of trained by necessity and just by the way the world works to shrink your life down as small as possible so you can manage it. And it's like you are cheating yourself out of your life. And that's a familiar idea, but this does it in a very, like we keep saying, fairy tale. It's more.
I would say the part this lesson not struggles. The problem with this lesson as it pertains to this story is that much like real life, in order for him to explore the world, he needs a lot of money.
He needs a lot of money. He needs a benefactor who arrives in the form of Lloyd Bridges, and then of course he becomes romantically involved with Meg Ryan, who is Lloyd Bridges' daughter, who also presumably has unlimited resources. So they're still like,
so at the end when he's like, I'm gonna live, it's like, I mean, you're also gonna be rich, and that helps a lot. But you can't. I get it. It's
but also there is value in having that realization. Yeah, of course there's value in money, but there's value in having that realization. You know what I mean? Like everybody will experience a life event like this that sort of snaps you out of, I need to switch my priorities up a little bit. Yeah.
The reason I think it works okay is because that moment happens before the offer when he but goes out on a date with the woman from work.
Yeah.
That's when the world starts opening up.
Yeah.
And that's when things are better, when he's enjoying life. So you could argue he doesn't need this money, but it plays a big part, specifically his luggage. His luggage, and that represents all of his material world possessions. Mm-hmm. Keeps saving him, and he has to float on it, and he has to rely on his luggage. I certain that means a lot in terms of the overall meaning of this film. You could say the luggage just represents emotional, personal luggage, I guess.
Maybe
but
he buys it on a whim.
Part. Yeah, and it keeps coming back to save him. Mm-hmm. And it represents all the stuff that he bought as a rich person. Which is, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah.
It's such a weird film that I don't. I don't know why this. I didn't look up.
It's charmingly weird. That's all I was going to say. Yeah. It's weird in the best possible way for me.
I'm curious how much this cost because it's not a cheap film.
No, but it doesn't look that expensive either.
No, it doesn't. I wonder how much it made. And it's one of those films that I feel like part of me feels like you can't make this movie like this these days, but also like you can make everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can make movies with this message that are just as weird, if not weirder. It's just the idea of having this much adventure. It's such a weird tone because it's a comedy for sure, but it's not that funny. Like they don't go for laughs nearly as much as you'd imagine, you know?
It's mostly it's more light than actually
it's
comedic.
Quirky.
Yeah.
It's like a Wes Anderson film. Like it's
more cheerful Wes Anderson film, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily look like one, but it has
not
that
at all.
heightened reality.
Not at all. It's a heightened reality, but not in the way that Wes Anderson does it. No. This is more like Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's a film. I watched that recently.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. But Little Shop of Horrors, compared to this, Little Shop of Horrors has more reason to be what it is because it's like sci-fi and it's a musical. Whereas this is like, I almost want to compare it to, I don't know. I haven't watched it in a while, but like Earth Girls Are Easy, if I remember that movie. Although that's also a sci-fi. What am I saying?
I feel like this is closer to Babe. If you're going to go for, if we're trying to like pin down its tone, like it's very much like a storybook.
Yeah, it is. And it just, I just wonder how, I didn't look up how well this movie did or if people liked it when it came out because it seems like not, maybe it is the tone of the time because we just mentioned Big as well. Like
Big still kind of takes place in the real world though. Like this is a very specific tone that
the first part
I think might have been more common at the time, but it certainly wasn't like the most popular tone.
Yeah. The first part when he's working at the factory before it's dismal. And it's like I had a note where it was like, if this is going to be the tone of the whole film, this is going to be a real fucking bummer.
Oof. Yeah. That is interesting. Like it immediately starts off almost repellent.
Yeah. It's a repellent beginning because it's just, they picked the most depressing looking environment. Obviously that's the point, but then it's like hard. It's hard at first. What do you think? Does the volcano just generally represent despair?
I think,
or nihilism, because it's Joe versus the volcano.
I think it's the unknown. I think it's an element of all those things. I think it's uncertainty. Because they jump, because right before they jump in, like Meg Ryan sort of says, "Well, we'll just jump and we'll just see what happens. She basically says, I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, that's kind of all life is. We jump and hope it works out.
You're right. Uncertainty. I was going to say oblivion, but it's kind of both. And that's the whole point is like just taking that leap of faith. And yeah, you're right. Is like, you can't really interpret this movie as a literal story because of stuff of like the message it would say then about like wealth. Is like, that's not really the point of the film.
No. And I think that was more about, I mean, even though that's obviously, it's impossible not to read that because it's literally his possessions, his luggage.
Right.
But what resonated with me more about that was the fact that he bought 4 of them on a whim. Just because they gave him the money and the money didn't matter to him. Like, price didn't matter to him. He's like, well, none of this matters. It's not my money and I'm going to be dead in a week anyway. So fuck it. Let's get 4 of them.
Yeah. It's weird how weirdly the world opens up for him. Like when he gets the limo driver is like extremely wise. And like they have this great moment at the beginning where he's like, where do you want to go? And he's like, I don't know. I should go shopping. And he's like, where do you want to shop? And he's like, I don't know. And then finally the limo driver just pulls over and he's just like, you need to like basically be your own man. Yeah, like I can't do this for you.
He's like, it sounds like you don't know who you are. He's like, listen, it took me, I think he says like the better part of like 6 decades to figure out who I am. And I'm tired. I'm not going to figure that out for you too. So, I mean, it's the part of his world opening up, right? Like he's lived in New York his entire life, but he has no idea where to go in New York City. Like,
exactly. And New York suddenly becomes like that was what was interesting visually is that it again very much starts as a Gilliam film, and then the first scene where there's color is he goes out on a date, and then when they leave that restaurant, it's the first time it looks like the real world, and then slowly that world opens up. We get we get big shots of the city. And then he starts driving around the city and he starts actually enjoying the city. But at the same time, they're showing that he's lonely too. Yeah. That he has all this stuff, but it's not doing anything for him. And I think that's sort of the point of the money.
He's finding...
That ultimately, it's about finding someone else as opposed to having all this stuff.
Exactly. Like, he has fun. Like, he has fun, like, getting access to all these places, these high-end shops and restaurants and hotels that were closed off to him. But he's there by himself. Like, they show him having a drink at a very nice bar, where there's a band playing, and it's not the Plaza. He ends up going somewhere else. Like, he says the Plaza just knee-jerk because it's the only hotel he knows. It's the only nice hotel he knows. And Ozzie Davis is like, nah, you don't want to go there. But, like, he's by himself. And in all the shops he goes to, he has fun when he, like, buys a tux for himself and for Ozzie Davis. He's like, I'll buy you one too. Who cares? Like, this isn't my money.
Yeah, this is great.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the way to how we're meant to interpret that.
Yeah, and you could also interpret a part of why there's 3 Meg Ryans. Another interpretation of that. And then of course he goes to LA, and LA really opens up and is depicted as, beautiful city, which, debatable. But again, you need money. Cities, like, that's the thing. Cities open up when you have money, and they kind of point that out.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is the 3 Meg Ryans, you could also think of it as like a commentary on like chaos of the world, and that there isn't fate, in the sense that it's played by the same woman every time. Every time he meets this woman, they have some sort of connection. Some of them not as good as others. Mm-hmm. But like that initial date when he's still broke, when he has no Lloyd Bridges, is still a very nice time they have. And the thing that doesn't work out is that version of Meg Ryan can't handle that he's going to die, whereas the other one can. But I guess what I'm getting at is, are they pointing out that no matter what choices we make, there's no right one? Whereas, like, he could have settled down with that Meg Ryan and lived a perfectly happy life as well, in poverty, getting a whatever job. Money doesn't matter. It's just there's these avenues, these choices. And like the idea that we're meant for one specific person or one specific life is nonsense.
I think so. I think that's that's definitely an aspect of it.
I think so, because again, it's these missed opportunities, like you said.
Yeah.
And that implies that those opportunities would have yielded a much different life with just as much happiness. Possibly, there's no way of knowing, which is also the point. Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately that's the idea, is like, there's really no telling where life is going to take us. That's why this movie is so chaotic in what happens.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's very similar to Everything Everywhere, where it's like there's this silliness to the universe that they're pointing out in the events of this movie. There's just this weird, I think what this movie is missing, that obviously doesn't need to be compared to any movie, but like that, say a movie like Everything Everywhere kind of added, is I feel like there's a little lack of empathy, because it's so framed on him. And he has all this money, and at the end, the tribe dies, and his coworkers are still miserable, living at, you know what I mean? Where it's like the movie isn't very empathetic to everybody. No, it's very hyper focused on him.
No, but I don't think that's a shortcoming.
I don't think it's a shortcoming either. It's just, it's something I noticed that's, you can't expect it to be everything.
Yeah, and I think that's just the nature of what it's trying to say. Is it's doing it in the simplest and most efficient way possible by focusing on a single person, because that's also the idea. Is like the kinds of choices and that you're faced with as an individual person.
Right.
So
right. Yeah. It doesn't. He can't help everybody, nor can the film help everybody.
No.
It's following one person.
Yeah, and it's also, it's fairy tale logic, which largely because those stories had a similar goal, where they're trying to communicate a specific idea in the simplest and most efficient way possible. So it's like, well, just focus it on a single person. Again, that's ultimately what this is about anyway. Is realizing how big a single person's life can be.
Yes. And don't trust Robert Stack. Never trust Robert
Stack or Lloyd Bridges, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, if you trust Lloyd Bridges, that's on you.
Yeah.
Like Robert Stack, he's sneaky.
That's true. You know? He starts talking and you're like, oh, he knows it. I'm sorry to tell you, you've got brain fog.
Yeah, I'm going to believe him.
I believe him, yeah.
But when Lloyd Bridges shows up with a duck cane, I'm like, I'm not. Yeah. I don't get out of my house, Lloyd Bridges.
If I buy whatever this song and dance man is selling.
Right, especially since he's dead, right? He's since passed.
Lloyd Bridges? Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so if Lloyd Bridges shows up at your house, don't let him in. That I don't think that's Lloyd Bridges, for starters.
No, definitely not. That's some sort of shambling shapeshifter.
Yeah, that's an entity. Yeah. You have an entity on your hands.
Yeah, that's an it.
It's like, it's the movie Men. It's just like, don't stay away from that.
Whatever that is, don't let it inside.
Don't let him inside. I have nothing else to say about this movie, Tom. Do you?
No, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I would say I'm not surprised, only because I sat down and I was like, I bet this is a good movie. And then I watched the movie and I was like, yep, I was correct.
It's just one of those movies that, I saw it 32 years ago. As a very young kid, and had a fine time at the movies with my dad, but I didn't have too many memories about it. And it's not even though it's got Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in it, who were two of the biggest stars of this period of movies in Hollywood. It's not a movie that you hear about a lot. It doesn't get brought up.
Really,
it's not like it's not celebrated like the other movies they did together, like Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail.
Right.
And even among their individual movies, like just as a Tom Hanks movie or just as a Meg Ryan movie, this movie does not get brought up.
Right. That's why I wonder if it wasn't successful.
It may not have been.
I don't know. I don't know why this director didn't do anything else. Maybe he was just like, I have two stories I want to tell. One is about nuns, and the other is this, and that's that.
I'll adapt Congo.
Yeah,
I will write you one Congo.
What a nightmare career. I mean, I would do anything for his career. A nightmare career?
That's an amazing career.
It's amazing. It's just like so all over the place.
If my 3 credits were Joe versus the Volcano, Congo, and Doubt, I would be fine. I'd be Tom Hanks at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
That's
good film.
I'd put that shit on my tombstone. I wrote Congo.
You can still do that.
That's true. I can do that. I can just do it. It turns out there's no law. You can put whatever you want on your tombstone.
Exactly.
I could say I created the Flintstones.
Yeah, you should get a plot next to this guy, and it's like dueling graves.
Yeah,
where it's like, no, I wrote.
Yeah, it's like
Congo.
Here lies John Patrick Shanley, writer of Doubt, and then my tombstone next to him. No, you fucking didn't.
Yeah, I wrote Doubt.
I wrote Doubt and Congo, mostly Congo.
We should definitely have more competing gravestones like that.
Yeah, we should have people carry their beef into the afterlife.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Like 4 steamer trunks of luggage.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know. Thanks, Vincent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. I really enjoyed your Not Crimson Tide as well.
Yeah.
And so this was through our Patreon. And if people are interested, they can go to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. If you go on there, there's a bunch of exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We do stuff with the Small Beans, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We watch movies with our patrons every Friday night, and we have a tier where you can do your own custom We Just Watched. So there's a lot of options on there, so check it out.
If you'd like to hear Dave and I jack jaw about your favorite movie, you can do that. That's a thing you can do. We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store that has all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, stickers, mugs, posters, all sorts of things. So check that out.
Check that out, baby. Baby!
Fucking Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane.
It's Nathan Lane.
It's Nathan Lane.
There's no getting around that. Like, it's just... Imagine Nathan Lane.
Nathan Lane, like, you can dress him up in lots of makeup and not recognize him. But as soon as he opens his mouth, everyone is like, that's fucking Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot disguise Nathan Lane's voice.
He should do a prank show where every prank ends with someone going, "Are you Nathan Lane?" And him having to just book it.
There's a comedian that does a similar joke. I can't remember his name. I saw it on a Comedy Central special 100 years ago. Does a gag about how Don Knotts could never prank call somebody because that's the joke. They would just instantly recognize Don Knotts' voice.
Just Don Knotts.
Yeah.
Oh, imagine. Much like Imagine Lloyd Bridges, imagine Don Knotts calling you. Again, he's since passed, so that would be really upsetting.
Even more terrifying, yeah.
Zombie Don Knotts. Yep. Ooh, I like that.
Gone Knotts.
Gone Knotts.
There it is.
Oh, fuck.
Don Rots.